Today we're diving into why in the world would we buy a 3% cap rate we bought last year, and now we're under contract 12 months later to sell it for a $1 million profit. So we're going to dive in, drill in. What did we see that probably some investors didn't see? And again, why a 3 cap? And actually the 3% cap was based on our expenses, but based on the seller's expenses, we were buying a 1 cap. That's right, an in-place 1% cap rate. My name is Barsanti. I'm CEO and founder of StorageLife. StorageLife is a community across the country where we find, fund, and operate self-storage together. We also either teach you how to do it or help you scale or both. If you want to know more, go to storagelife.com. So I want to start by saying, you hear often people say, I'm not buying right now. I buy 6 caps, or I will never buy a 4 cap, or I'll never buy a 4.5, 5 cap. Cap rates are important. They are a great metric to figure out a market's price. When I look at cap rates facilities are trading at, what they're selling at, what the current in-place cap rate is, it gives me a quick snapshot of potentially what this property is worth, what I could potentially exit for. Cap rates, you can Google what a cap rate is and you'll find all kinds of different helpful definitions and different ways to look at it, but it's essentially a formula of telling you what something's worth based on its revenue. And while it's very important, I also see that it chases people away from opportunities, potential opportunities where they could make a lot of money. So this is all part of why we're going to talk about this deal. So more than caring about a cap rate, I care about where I can go with the facility. So if I'm going to buy a 3 cap, well, it's because I think I can take it to a 10 or 11 or 12 cap, right? And so that's why it's just the spread. It's the value add. We're value add investors. And so that's why we would buy a 3 cap. So hope that makes sense. That to me is really, really, really important. There's a lot of things you'll find that people are telling you to do and stay away from, not to do, population decline, stuff like that. It's all important, but you have to look beyond that. Every deal, every opportunity is multi-dimensional. And us as investors, we have to figure out all the multi-dimensions, what the real value add. Okay, so let's dive in. First, we found this deal off market. It was one of our trained self-storage VAs. This was on a follow-up call. It was an old list. We had talked to this person. The seller was actually a self-storage operator. He owned 5 other locations in this same city, but this was the only location he was having a problem with. The only location. He had bought it 2 years ago on a 1031. He was an older seller. He was a developer. So yes, although he was operating storage, he wasn't your typical storage operator. He was an old-time developer that owned a bunch of real estate, built a handful of ground-up facilities. And because of his timing and his years in developing and where he was located, he ended up doing really well with these storage facilities, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's an operator. So point number 1 is when you're talking to a seller, just because they have other facilities, it doesn't necessarily mean they're an operator. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're making the money they actually should. Seller discloses, this has been a pain in the butt for me. I've owned it 2 years. When I took it over, it was way more dilapidated than I thought, but I didn't do my due diligence and I couldn't get people out because it was military. If you have active military in your facility, it is not the same process to get rid of them. It's a much lengthier, more challenging process. So anyway, 2 years later, he's sitting at about, I think it was like 40% occupancy. So we're going, man, are we really going to buy the problem child, the only facility he's willing to sell when he can't even fill up and it's been 2 years? We looked a little bit deeper. We started really understanding, you know what, this is interesting. He's an operator, he's a storage developer, but he's actually running it more like a mom and pop. His website's bad, his SEO marketing, he's not really showing up. It's a bigger city. I think he's just doing a poor job operating, which at first was hard to believe. We dug deeper and we found that we are surrounded by REITs, okay? And we found that thankfully all the REITs were full. The saturation was good. The supply index, right? It was not saturated. And where we were located, is in a ton of rooftops. And so even though I'm surrounded by REITs, Extra Space, CubeSmart, Secure Care, we were in this nice little pocket, and the square foot per capita, the supply index is telling me there needs to be more storage there, and everybody was full. So we go, hey, this is a cool little military market. We like it, right next to a giant base. I don't know, this feels like an opportunity. So we paid just over $1 million. I think it was like maybe 125. Price per square foot was really good. That's one thing we really liked about it. We're buying this at way below replacement cost. Supply index is low. Even though this guy's struggling, this market's telling me that storage is in demand. Then you really learn when you go see the property. We put the property under contract, we go under contract, we show up, and sure enough, verify, great market, great little neighborhood, packed with dense with housing. We're on a great main road, nobody quite around us. And that some of these REITs, one of them was full, old, drywall, inside interior walls, and they didn't even have a gate, and they were full. And we're like, wow, so they don't even have security issues, and they're full. And then 1 mile that way, we talked to an Extra Space that said they were getting broken into left and right, and we're like, wow, this is bizarre. So one facility is getting broken into left and right. This facility doesn't have a gate, and they don't have a break-in problem. They did have a live-in residence, which helps, but so did the Extra Space. But the point of all this is different information, mixed information, all kinds of clues as to what's going on. Some scary, some not. Oh, you're getting break-ins. Oh, but this person's not. But the bottom line is a supply demand. It was there. The demand was there, and it wasn't oversupplied. And this guy wasn't an operator. So we go back in, through the negotiations, through what we're dealing with. And bottom line is, okay, I'm buying this thing for 1.3, way below replacement cost. It's 40% occupied. And when I get it to 80, 90% occupied, this facility is worth about $2.5 million. That's my train of thought. To get there, I have to come in and I have to buy a facility losing $6,500 a month. That's right. Our bleed on day one takeover is $6,500 a month. Now, mind you that this is a year ago when the market's been mushy for a long time. And I'm going, hey, 4 years ago, buying this facility, I would have been like amped up. I can fill this no problem. But we all know that we've slowly seen a deflation of occupancy across the country ever since the COVID boom. Most markets are slowly too full and they're slowly going down, and people have overbuilt in certain markets. This is also in a state with high property taxes. And so the property taxes were high, our expenses were gonna be roughly 40%, insurance was high, and we're losing $6,500 a month. But I'm gonna keep going back to this because this is the main point. But it's a strong market. It's a military market, which I like. And it's a very important base that I don't feel like is at risk of just getting closed down, right? It's surrounded by rooftops. The REITs are full, and our radius, our supply index in a 1.5, 2 mile radius is great. It's telling me there needs to be more storage there, that the demand is there. So no matter how many scary parts of this deal I can concentrate in, I'm focused on what matters most. Supply demand, and upside. Fine. So now I'm going to buy the 3 cap, even though, again, in place, their expenses was a 1 cap. Why am I going to buy a 3 cap? Because I think there's $1 million of upside. What is that going to take? It's going to take, I think it was 1.3, and then there was 14 parking spots that used to be units. And I'm going, even though it's already 40% occupancy, we have 14 pads there for 10 by 30s. And I'm going, dude, we have to pull a permit. It'll probably take a week and we'll have buildings up in 2 months. And sure enough, I think it was almost quicker than that. The long wait was just the still getting there. We had our 14 brand new 10 by 30s up within a week's time of that still getting there. And now our occupancy drops from 40% down to about, 36%, something like that. The units that were in highest demand, the 10 by 30s. How did I look at this? I looked at it as, okay, with our construction loan, we have a pocket lender that likes the area. We're getting pretty decent terms. My partner and I are each roughly going to bring $275 out of our pocket. So in order for me to play in this game, the single facility we're talking about, this game's going to cost me $275,000. Going to cost my partner $275,000. If there's $1 million of upside, we can leave town a year or so from now, and maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years. I wasn't necessarily planning on that year exit, but I knew that if things worked out really well, then we potentially could, or we'd maybe have to hold it a little bit longer, but that the value is there. That's going to cost us roughly $550,000 each, and then we could potentially double our money, right? So right now we have about a $1.4 million tied into that deal if we get the $1 million profit. Now we are under contract. We went under right away. What did we do? We went to a broker buddy of ours that is great at selling deals. He's got deep relationships, especially your relationships with brokers matters, especially when you're going to sell, when you're going to buy, but especially when you're going to sell. He had a great buyer for this and it worked out. And so we're under contract for 2.5. It's exactly the $1 million profit I was looking for in 12 months. Big risk, losing $6,500 a month. How did we do that? We went in on our bank loan. We put a whole year's of principal and interest in as our down payment just in case anything happened. And what happened was we bought the deal, 38% occupancy or dropped to 36, couple slow months, not going very well. It took time to build the SEO to compete with the REITs, but also we jumped on Sparefoot. Sparefoot doesn't always work. It's really expensive. In this market, usually with this kind of activity, especially when there's military activity, it can work really well, especially if the population's large enough. Sure enough, we worked Sparefoot really hard and then boom, the vein clicked. It was about 5-6 months in. We had 3 months in a row where I think we rented close to 75 units. And that was all we needed. We hit the base, we hit that vein of deployment, people finding us on Sparefoot. We were paying a ton on Sparefoot fees 2 months, but then we did it. We went from 38 and then it was like 48 and then all of a sudden it was 60 and then we hit 95% occupancy. When we started, we were making, it was about $5,000 a month and now we're making close to $23,000 a month. That is the upside. Is this thing cash flowing? Not really, because of the high property tax and the high insurance. I bought it knowing it wasn't a cash flow play. It was an equity play. Cash flow is important and often king, but I buy when I know that there's spread, a significant spread. So netting out $1 million in 12 months, I will do this deal all day long. Is it a big facility? It's 33,000 square feet. I think we added another 1,500 square feet, something like that. So we're less than 35,000, but a big enough market to bring a big REIT buyer, surrounded by other REITs, plenty of upside. I'm gonna risk my 275 temporarily. This is how I look at most deals. Yes, it's 275K. If we couldn't afford that, you bring more partners in, but I'm gonna risk this money. The reason I'm gonna risk this money is because I think no matter what, we're buying this facility cheaper than it will ever sell again. No matter what. No matter what, let's say we buy it, ends up being rough, we can't sell for a while. No matter what, we are going to sell this facility for more than it's worth. We are going to do better than this operator did. We will be able to out-operate this operator. For sure, this facility will never do as bad as it's doing now. We're buying way below replacement costs. It's a great facility. It has climate control and drive up, good big units. Worst case scenario, we could probably sell this thing a year later at 60% occupancy for more than we bought it for. Typically, when I'm ready to pull the trigger on deals, it's because I'm going, worst case scenario, I'm getting this 275 back. But more likely, this deal's got $1 million of upside. And honestly, I think we're selling shy. I think it has more upside. We're not near at our full potential, but it just worked out with timing and everything. We're gonna go to sell and this new buyer's got upside. And they're willing to buy it at that number because they're also getting a deal and they have more value add to do it. So deals can look scary and you don't buy just for cash flow. We take certain risks sometimes when we were really confident that the spread is there. We are willing to sacrifice cash flow, bleed several $1,000s a month because of a really good market, showing us that there was more demand than there was supply. We bought it, we took the calculated risk, and knock on wood, we're gonna close and we're gonna win. And if this buyer changes their mind, there's another buyer. Deals usually are not that obvious. You gotta look further, you gotta look deeper. Hope this helps. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Good luck out there. Peace.